Happy Thursday, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Game Time with John Eads. Be sure to follow my social media accounts at John Eads TV on the X app, on Instagram, and on Facebook as well. If you ever miss an episode that we do on Tuesdays and Thursdays, you can find them online here at this link, and you'll see it the whole episode. So if you need a reminder, it's right there. Also, our station's YouTube page, this is where we kind of house and post all of these videos. So while you're there, give us a thumbs up, like the video, subscribe to the channel as well. We really appreciate all the support you guys give. And comment too. I'll be sure to go through there on my YouTube account and look and see what you guys are commenting and give you my thoughts back and things like that. Electric episode today. We've got 20 minutes or so scheduled here with just jam-packed every minute full of content. We're previewing LSU, MSU. Southern Jaguars, kind of checking in on them, getting them into the mix, how they've been doing this season. They play Alabama A&M this weekend. And then the Saints have Monday Night Football next Monday. That's before we record again, so we've got to give you a preview for that game against Carolina. How can LSU win? How can Southern win? How can the Saints win? We will cover all of that in today's episode, and I'll give you my thoughts on who wins the games, if they cover, things like that. So it's going to be a good one. Hope you guys are ready to go. You got to be focused, too. We're about to give you a lot of stuff. I'm going to throw a lot of information at you. So if you're not prepared, take a second. Okay, and let's go. Okay, we'll start with LSU. We got a couple of topics here. How can LSU beat Mississippi State? What are the keys for the LSU offense to beat the Bulldogs on the road? It's a really good Mississippi State team. They're 2-0, led by the defense. Their new head coach, Zach Arnett, is a defensive guy. He runs the 3-3-5 defense. How can LSU's offense, which, we've seen one good performance, we've seen one bad performance, play against this unit? I think there's a lot of confidence amongst LSU fans right now, and maybe within the LSU offensive room itself, because the last time you played a football game, you smashed Grambling State. You scored more than 70 points. Right now, you are, I believe, leading the SEC in total offense. Obviously, that's very inflated because you played a team that's not up to the level of competition you are, nor the level of competition you're going to see week to week this year. So I'm super excited for this game, because Mississippi State has a really solid defense. Some great pieces on all levels of the defense, so we'll really get a chance to see what's going to work for LSU, who can step up for LSU, and really, how much have you improved since that embarrassing Florida State loss? We're going to find out about all of that this weekend. Couple of names to know, couple of notes I think that are important when it comes to Mississippi State's defense. Two linebackers that, if you don't know their names, I'm going to tell you right now, and if you choose to ignore me, you'll hear them again on Saturday. Plenty of time. So, Jet Johnson, he's an all-SEC linebacker, has had 2 games with double-digit tackles already. In Mississippi State's last game against Arizona, he proved why he's one of the best linebackers in the SEC. 11 tackles and an interception. Actually, 2 interceptions. 1 tipped ball, and then 1 where he just read the quarterback's eyes and completely destroyed a play. So, 11 tackles, 2 picks, SEC Defensive Player of the Week, Jet Johnson. Know that name. He's going to be a real problem for LSU, and Jaden Daniels will have to really avoid staring down receivers and keep his head up in the open space, because I'll talk about this in a minute here. He's going to have a lot of chances, I think, to get out of the pocket, move, extend plays, and run for first downs. But he's got to keep his head up, because Jet Johnson is going to be on him like a heat-seeking missile and also reading him in coverage. Alongside Johnson and Mississippi State's second level of the defense, Nathaniel Watson, also an all-SEC guy. He had 10 tackles against Arizona, right behind Johnson. Also had an interception in his own right. And then in the first game of the season against Southeastern Louisiana, he had a sack and a half. So he can really affect the game from a coverage standpoint, just a run defense tackling standpoint, and then also get into your backfield and get some sacks as well. So those are 2 guys that sit in the middle of this defense, command things, and really, really affect the game. That's the strength of this Bulldogs defense, is that linebacker unit, and that's not the same for LSU. And when your linebackers kind of lead your unit, that unit's usually pretty good because the communication's great, and then they really can just serve as the eraser when there's errors on that defensive line, maybe in the secondary as well. On the note of that secondary, I think this is the weakness for this Mississippi State defense, which doesn't bode well when you run a 3-3-5 because it's 3 defensive linemen, 3 linebackers usually, and then 5 DBs.
So they returned just one starter from last year's team, and they've been a little porous so far. I know that, we talk a lot about interceptions and what Arizona did in last week's game. By the way, it was a great game. 31-24, Mississippi State did win. Ugly game. Arizona really moved the football. Jayden de Laura passed for over 300 yards, over 50% completion percentage. He's Arizona's quarterback, by the way. Also had 2 touchdowns, 4 picks. Now, I know you might be thinking, well, doesn't that mean Mississippi State's defensive backfield is good? No, because I just said, the linebackers are really the guys that had those picks. 3 of them by those linebackers, not the DBs, right? And some of those were even tip passes. I'll give credit to Mississippi State's secondary on one of those interceptions, but the others were all the linebackers. I think there are plays to be made against this Bulldogs secondary, the corners and the safeties. They're new. They're still learning. They're still adjusting to the speed of the SEC game and really just getting experience. And Arizona's got some pieces on offense, but Arizona versus LSU, who's got a better offense, I'll take LSU for the potential they have, for the playmakers they have. The receivers for Arizona last week, one guy had 8 catches for over 150 yards, one had 8 catches for 60, and then another had 4 for 47, which means there's opportunities for multiple players, multiple receivers to get open against this defense. And LSU has the receivers to do that. Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas, Kyron Lacey, maybe Chris Hilton. They've got the guys that can run open and catch passes. And it can be done against this defense. We just saw it done last week in that Arizona game. Okay, so that's one of the biggest keys for the LSU offense. Can we get that vertical passing game going? We saw it against Grambling State. Chris Hilton early on, even Brian Thomas, long passes north-south. Can we see some of that against this defense? Can Malik Neighbors make a play one-on-one? Can Brian Thomas go up and get a jump ball? Can a Kyron Lacey burn his defender on a slant or a post route, take it the distance? That's, I think, the charge and the call for this LSU offense in this game if they want to pull out the win. And then, finally, Mississippi State's defensive line, they brought back some interior guys, but the ends don't get much pressure. Like, I was watching the tape back of that game last week, Arizona and Mississippi State, and the Bulldogs didn't get much pressure. They don't really have guys that are going to, within 2 or 3 seconds of the snap, get to the quarterback, force him out of the pocket, or bring him down for a sack. They had 1 sack last week. A lot of TFLs, but again, that's credit to the linebackers and, really just the run defense. I don't think there's players on this Mississippi State D-line that have that pass rush mentality, nor the ability. Jayden de Laura was running around he was over here. He was over here. He was taking 10-yard dropbacks. Like, Jaden Daniels can do the same thing, and he'll be able to take off and get yards downfield when passes aren't there. So I expect Daniels to eclipse 50 yards on the ground, and I expect this LSU offense to pass the ball at will and move the football in this game through the air. So now let's flip over to the other side of the ball. LSU's defense, how can they stifle a really mediocre Mississippi State offense, in my opinion? What the Bulldogs used to run under Mike Leach, who passed away last year and is no longer coaching the Bulldogs. No more air raid system. They've switched back to more of a pro-style offense, and it's been pretty good, but it's not explosive. The offense really is predicated around an offensive line that brought back 4 starters from last year and is really solid. Like, I'm going to give them all the credit in the world. They've looked good so far this year. And then their running back. This guy runs the offense. Woody Marks is his name. You might remember him from last year's game. He had a really solid showing against LSU. Everything Mississippi State does from an offensive standpoint, in my opinion, runs through Woody Marks. He had 24 carries last game against Arizona, 123 yards and a touchdown, also 8 receptions for 91 yards. He's leading the SEC in rush yards through 2 weeks. 250 yards, 3 touchdowns. And as I just said, he's a receiving threat as well. So what they're trying to do with a wide receiver core that didn't bring much production or talent back from last year, and again, just like that secondary is still kind of adjusting to the SEC level of play, is force feed the ball to Marks. So LSU's game plan should be to keep your full focus on that running back. He needs somebody covering him one-on-one pretty much every down. And I think if you're LSU and you're game planning to stop this offense, stifle this offense, stack the box. Pro-style offense, they want to run the football. okay? They don't have the explosive playmakers on the outside to beat you one-on-one. I know LSU's secondary has been susceptible, but they don't necessarily have the guys that can catch the passes. They've got someone that can throw the ball. Will Rogers, one of the most decorated quarterbacks in the SEC, 7th all-time with 11,000 career passing yards. He's just passing guys on the record ranks every single week. They got a good quarterback. They haven't used him the same way as he's been used. How has he gotten to 11,000 yards? The air raid system. They don't run it anymore. Rodgers throws maybe 20 times a game at most. Last week, he was 13 of 17, very efficient, 77% completion percentage, 162 yards, 3 touchdowns. They want to run the football. That's what this Bulldog team wants to do. So LSU needs to game plan for that and stop the run, force Mississippi State to beat you with the pass. And I know that's a little risky because I just read you Rodgers' resume. It's very good. I don't think, though, they have the same receivers that he's been accustomed to having the past couple of years, some of whom are playing in the NFL right now. So I don't think that MSU has that explosive factor, those guys that will take the ball 40, 50 yards, catch a pass downfield. They haven't done it so far, at least, that I've seen on film. Maybe it can be done against LSU. Florida State certainly did that, even Grambling State to a certain extent. The point here is, though, MSU's not explosive unless you allow them to be. They had a couple of big plays against Arizona, but they were the recipe of missed tackles, missed assignments, things like that. Even the game-winning touchdown in overtime, screen pass. Arizona linebacker right there to make the play, misses the tackle, 25 yards later, touchdown. And Mississippi State wins. So as long as you don't have things like that, missed tackles in open space, missed assignments in coverage, I think you'll be just fine if you're LSU's defense, because there's not a surefire draft pick at wide receiver for this team, and the running back really is the focal point of the offense, and you can shut down one player. Like, if you game plan and you've got the scheme and you really, really think about your assignments play to play, you can slow down one player. So that, I think, is the key in this game. Force Mississippi State to beat you with the pass, put 7, 8 guys in the box, and just shut down that run game. Arizona should have won last week, in my opinion, because Mississippi State was +4 in the turnover margin. Arizona threw 4 picks, had a fumble. MSU turned it over just once, and they barely won this game. What that tells me is that their offense isn't explosive. When they have the momentum in their hands in a game, they can't take advantage of that with the offense. And LSU, I guarantee you, will not turn the ball over 5 times. Maybe not even 3. That's just not what this offense does. Jaden Daniels doesn't really throw interceptions. And, fumbles happen, but I don't think they're going to be fumbling 2 and 3 times in this game. So I got a lot of confidence in LSU, and I think LSU wins this game. That's my official prediction. Number 14 team on the road in a very, crazy environment. Starkville's going to be ready. They're going to show out with the cowbells. But I think LSU goes in there, and I think people really overreacted to that FSU loss. I think people need to take a step back. It's been 2 weeks. We can breathe a little bit. This team is still really good. That's why they're still top 15. That's why a lot of people had them as maybe not a dark horse, but an outsider that could crash the college football playoff party. It's still a really good team. I think they've cleaned a lot up in the past few weeks from a scheme standpoint, from an assignment standpoint. So I think LSU goes and wins this game, and it's a very impressive win because regrouping in 2 weeks like that after really getting embarrassed in Orlando is tough to do. They're going to go to a tough SEC environment on the road in a conference opening game and win. I don't think they'll cover, but this LSU team is going to look a lot better versus what we saw in week 1 against Florida State. All right, that's enough for the Tigers for now. We'll check back in with them next week on Tuesday and see how they do. Let's talk about Southern Jaguars football. It's been a tough start to the season for them. They're 0-2 right now. Losses to Alabama State and a close one on the road, 14-10. And then most recently in the Boombox Classic, another tough L to Jackson State in front of a sold-out crowd. It was an awesome environment. There's a lot of excitement around this team right now. They went 7-5 last year. Had a really good season in Eric Dooley's first year. But off to a pretty slow start here in the second year. 13-point loss most recently, as I said. I think the biggest problem right now with Southern is the offense just is not catching on. I had Kevin Batiste in here for a prior episode. Check it out if you missed it. And one thing that stuck out to me when I was researching this Southern team is how critical it is for this offense to play well for this team to win. Last year, Southern, I've said this before, 1-4 in games where they failed to score 25 or more points. In the games where they did do that, 7-5 record, do the math, they were 6-1. When the offense caught on, caught fire, and put up some big numbers. They haven't done that yet this year. In fact, they haven't even scored 25 points in total yet through 2 games, 14 and then 10. So that's the biggest problem for me right now with this team. The defense has played well enough for you to win games. There's the occasional big play they give up on a reverse, on a big run where they just don't tackle. But, that kind of stuff, it's going to happen. It happens to every football team. You'll miss a tackle once in a while. And Jackson State, they still got all that talent, most of it at least, that Deion Sanders brought in before he left for Colorado. That's a good football team. They're held in extremely high regard in the SWAC. So that's not a bad loss by any stretch of the imagination. So back to Southern. How can they turn it around? How can this offense get going? For me, it's the run game. There's a clear imbalance right now in the offense as to what's the strength, what's the identity of the offense. To me, it's the passing game. It's kind of tough to tell because even the passing game has been a little suspect. Harold Blood is putting up about 50% completion percentage numbers. He's turning the ball over, things like that. But the run game has really, really been stifled so far. The first game, Southern carried 27 times for 69 yards. And I'll give you the sack-adjusted numbers, too, because I think that does matter. They only lost 12 yards on sacks. So you remove that, it's still not a pretty stat line. It wasn't pretty to begin with. Most recently against Jackson State, 28 carries for 54 yards, and they only lost 9 yards on sacks. That's maybe 2 yards a carry. That's not good. That's not consistent moving of the football down the field. So it seems like Southern's relying way too much on that passing game, and maybe that's why you're seeing Blood put up these, not so pretty numbers. About 50% completion percentage. As a quarterback, you want to be at about 70, and he threw 2 picks last game. So if you get that run game mixed in, they had a rushing touchdown against Jackson State from about 20 yards out. You get some of those mixed in, you can balance your offense out. And you don't force Harold Blood, a newer quarterback, really entering his first full season of starting, to be Superman. So that run game's got to pick up. I'm not sure if it's a running back or an offensive line thing, because the offensive line hasn't been great. They allowed Blood to be sacked 7 times against Jackson State, and then 2 more against Alabama A&M, which isn't as bad. But that offensive line really has to pick it up and give Blood some more protection and I guess open up some more holes in the run game because you got good athletes back there. There's 3 or 4 capable guys of toting the rock. But if they got nowhere to go, they got nowhere to go. So watch out for that run game this weekend against Alabama A&M to see if that starts to progress. I know Kevin's been talking a lot this week about Southern's offensive line and talking to Coach Julie about, how can this unit improve and, kind of the specifics on that. So check that out as well on our YouTube page if you haven't seen it. I know Kevin's been covering that relentlessly this week, as he does every week. He's kind of our Southern Jaguars beat reporter. So as I mentioned, Alabama A&M is up next for Southern. 6 o'clock kick right here in Baton Rouge. It was a great environment there last week. I'm sure it'll be the same this week. A&M's a good team. They put up 51 points last week against Lane, so they've got a really explosive offense. They can pass it well. They pass it efficiently, too. Their quarterback had, I think, 3 incompletions last game. And the run game's good as well. They go over 150 pretty easily with a lot of different guys taking it from the backfield there. And they've also played Vanderbilt already, kind of an early season non-conference game. They did lose 47-13, which isn't necessarily a fun score to look at. But you look at the stats, and they put up some pretty good numbers. They ran the ball for over 150. They passed the ball for about 150 as well. So they went for 300 yards in a very balanced way. And they won the time of possession battle, too, against Vanderbilt, which was impressive. So they've played some stiff competition, and that's a good Alabama A&M team. So for me, there's just too many question marks right now with Southern's offensive line, really their offense in general. And A&M put up 51 points last week. This offense can move the football and light up the scoreboard. So I'm taking Alabama A&M to beat Southern. But I hope I'm wrong, and I hope that some of the things I just spoke about are cleaned up and fixed up because then Southern can really start to look like what they did look like towards the end of last season when they finished 7-5. So stay tuned for that. I do have Alabama A&M winning this weekend. All right, let's round out the episode with one final preview and prediction. The Saints on the road for the first time this season at Carolina on Monday Night Football. It's going to be a really fun weekend if you're a Louisiana football fan. We got high school going down today. I got my Sportsline shirt on. LSU, of course, on the road, as we talked about. Southern's in town. Saints on the road on MNF. I mean, it's prime time, right? So this is a very winnable game, I think, for New Orleans, a team that hasn't started a season 2-0 since 2013. I could not believe that when I read it online, but that's the facts. They haven't won their first 2 games of the year in a decade, which is just crazy. I think this is a really good matchup for the Saints. You got a young quarterback in Bryce Young for Carolina, an offensive line that is a little bit shaky, and if you want to watch the Titans game back, you know what that D-line did to Tennessee's offensive line and Ryan Tannehill. They made life a living nightmare for him. He had 3 interceptions, was hovering at or below 50% completion percentage. I think it was his lowest QBR ever as an NFL quarterback. I think I read that online. So not a good showing from an NFL veteran. Imagine what an NFL rookie's going to look like against that same kind of stuff. I mean, Peyton Turner's kind of your only injury this week. I think I read that he's doubtful in this game. Everybody else is back. Everybody else ready to tee off once again, and they should. And Bryce Young showed last week in the loss to Atlanta, 24-10, that he'll make mistakes. He's a young quarterback. He's a rookie. It's really rare for NFL rookies to have big first seasons, even like respectable first seasons. He had 2 picks last week, and I think that plays right into the hands of what the Saints want to do again. Just go after the quarterback, force him to be uncomfortable, and get some interceptions, get some turnovers because of that. Now, the thing with Young is he's a dual-threat quarterback. We saw it in his time at Alabama. I saw it a little bit in the preseason. He's got an elite ability to escape that pressure, find an out, find that fire exit, and extend a play, whether it be on the ground or, kind of fading to the left, fading to the right, and waiting for a receiver to come open. That's a unique ability you don't often see from quarterbacks. Tannehill certainly couldn't do it. Young will. So if you have the chance to get this guy on the ground, you got to get him on the ground, because if he finds a way to get out into the open space, open real estate, he will make a play. That's why he won a Heisman Trophy in college. So that's the key, I think, for the Saints defense. Pressure again. Carl Granderson, Cam Jordan, Malcolm Roach. Shut down that run and get into that backfield for some sacks. Make that pocket as, close, as tight as you can so that Young just does not feel comfortable the entire game. How about on offense? I think the offense played a lot better than the stat line would show from the first game, 16-15, the win over Tennessee. Here's what I would do if I'm Carolina. Jamal Williams was really nothing of a factor in the first game. He had 18 carries for 45 yards. That's 2.5 per carry. And I've told you guys this. I'm a Lions fan. I saw him play in Detroit last year. He doesn't have the individual ability, really, to impact the game when he's not inside the 10-yard line trying to get a touchdown. He's not a home run hitting running back. He's a guy where he'll take the handoff, there's a cloud of dust from that offensive line, and he'll pick up 3 yards. Then the dust settles, you're like, all right, that was boring. He's not a guy that will take it 15, 20 yards. So if I'm Carolina, what I'm doing is kind of the same approach I told LSU to take with Mississippi State. Stack the box. Force the Saints to kind of beat you with that run game, because Derek Carr can move the ball. I was really blown away by how efficient he was in that game against Tennessee. Only 10 incompletions, or 11 incompletions. 22 of 33, over 300 yards, touchdown and a pick. And he spread the ball around to Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, Michael Thomas, Juwan Johnson. Maybe more will get involved this week. If I'm Carolina, I'm forcing New Orleans to beat me with that ground game. Can Jamal Williams beat me? I don't think so. Derek Carr's not a dual-threat quarterback, but he can spray, and he can hit his receivers from any point on the field that he wants to if he has the time to do that. So I am dropping a lot of people in coverage if I'm Carolina, and I'm forcing Jamal Williams in that run game with whoever else takes the handoffs in the backfield, because Kamara's not playing. We all know that. He's suspended. It's tough to do that as a defense because, if you start giving up 10, 12-yard gains, then you're going to kind of change things up. So let's flip it over to the Saints side of things. If that's how Carolina's going to think, all right, they're going to let us beat them with the run game, I would still stick to that passing game because it's what works, and maybe use that run game to, again, set up that pass. Let Jamal Williams get a couple of good touches, go for 7, 8 yards, maybe 10, and then you've got the guys to hit a deep ball. Derek Carr play action, Chris Olave over the middle, Rashid Shaheed on a double move, Juwan Johnson one-on-one against the linebacker. It's a tough offense to stop and to game plan for. And if you can kind of use reverse psychology and think of how Carolina wants to stop you, you can then expose them. So I want to see if this offensive line, which has been the subject of a little bit of criticism, can open up some holes, get that run game going, and see if Jamal Williams can maybe step up his game a little bit. But I think the Saints easily win this game. The spread, I think, was 3 last I checked. So give me the Saints to win and cover the 3-point spread as well. What's funny about this job and kind of doing this is that you can talk yourself into these predictions by just kind of researching and thinking about this game. I just gave you a lot of valid points as to why the Saints will win. And they're very clear, and they're very bound to happen. The Saints will get pressure on Bryce Young. The Saints will move the football through the air. Carolina will try to slow down that passing game, which means there's going to be a lot of space and favorable matchups for New Orleans in the box. I just don't see a scenario in which Carolina wins this game unless the Saints just completely implode, and I don't think they will. So I think everyone's really, when they look at the NFL scores Tuesday morning, they're going to see the Saints game and go, whoa, yeah, these guys are for real. That 1-point win against Tennessee should have been a lot more inflated than it was. So Saints will win this game, and I think it won't be necessarily close as well, but can't wait to watch it on Monday night. And that'll do it. Got a big weekend ahead, big slate for Louisiana football. LSU at 11 on Saturday, Alabama A&M and Southern at 6, and then the Saints on Monday night. So it should be a lot of fun. And, you're watching that LSU game. I hope you guys are blown away at the improvements that are made. It's really, coming into the season, I didn't think it would be that big of a game. Probably just a nice way to start the SEC slate. After you lose to Florida State, though, it becomes even more urgent that you win this game and win it well. So that's going to be a lot of fun. We'll be out in Starkville. So, again, follow my personal social accounts for more content while I'm there at John Eads TV on the X app, Instagram. I also got a Facebook account as well. And if you've missed any of our episodes, they're all available right here. While you're on YouTube here, if you are here, like and subscribe. And we'll see you guys next week to break down these games that we just previewed. See you then.